Georgia Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Okay, now that's a name that you're going to hear a lot more often as the election cycle approaches and as the Georgia prosecution of Donald Trump unfolds. And I do have two clips that I want to play for you guys because it shows two sides of Brian Kemp that just seem like almost mutually exclusive. All right, so just to tee it up, the first clip is in reference to calls by state lawmakers in Georgia, so state Republicans, but also Republican officials throughout the country, and including Donald Trump himself, for Brian Kemp to use his powers as governor to basically squash, either through calling a special session of the Georgia state legislature, do something, get Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, get her, like defund her, get her off the case. And this is what Brian Kemp had to say in response.
I have not seen any evidence that DA Willis's actions or lack thereof warrant action by the Prosecuting Attorney Oversight Commission, but that will ultimately be a decision that the Commission will make. Regardless, in my mind, a special session of the General Assembly to end run around this law is not feasible and may ultimately prove to be unconstitutional. The bottom line is that in the state of Georgia, as long as I'm governor, we're going to follow the law and the Constitution, regardless of who it helps or harms politically. Over the last few years, some inside and outside of this building may have forgotten that, but I can assure you, I have not. The oath I took with my hand on the Bible that's right behind me in January of 23 is the same Bible that I took in my inauguration in 2019. And in Georgia, we will not be engaging in political theater that only inflames the emotions of the moment. We will do what is right. We will uphold our oaths as public servants. And it's my belief that our state will be better off for it.
All right, Luke, so before we play that next clip, and I hope you're bracing yourself for the whiplash that's going to come, what do you think about this first clip? What do you think about his words?
Good. We've seen from Brian Kemp a willingness to, can you imagine, actually having some basic respect for the Constitution and the rule of law? And even though in so many ways Brian Kemp is also so wrong in his governance and in his positions and so many other decisions he made, at least he was willing to say, yeah, I'm not going to try to overthrow democracy for Trump in 2020. And I'm not going to try to go after the rule of law and go after those upholding the rule of law in the interest of Donald Trump here today. And it's the lowest bar you could possibly imagine, but it's the one that we root on Republicans crossing now. Yeah.
Well, then that leads me to the second clip. Okay, so you're all smiles now. It's at least some gentle golf clapping for Governor Kemp for like not wanting to overthrow the republic. But then the question comes like, okay, well, what do you think about the man who did try to overthrow the republic? He's running for president again. What if he's the Republican nominee? That's the inevitable question, and Governor Kemp gives an answer in this clip.
I'm gonna certainly be supporting a Republican nominee to beat Joe Biden.
But Trump pressured you to overturn the election. He wanted you to call a special session. He said he was ashamed that he had endorsed you because you said you couldn't do what he wanted you to do there. I mean, he called you hapless. Even despite all of that, you would still work to get him elected if he's a nominee.
He was mad at me. I was not mad at him. I told him exactly what I could and couldn't do when it came to the election, and I followed the law and the Constitution. And as I've said before, that's a lot bigger than Donald Trump. It's a lot bigger than me. It's a lot bigger than the Republican Party. And that's what I'm going to continue to do as the governor. And that's what I did in 2020. But despite all of those things, I believe anybody running for president right now is a Republican that would be better than what we're seeing with the Biden-Harris administration.
I will say, Josiah, that in response to clips like that, I've had people go, well, yeah, he's a Republican, obviously. Obviously. No. It is reasonable. It is our obligation to be steaming over, outrage over the fact that Bill Barr and here Brian Kemp recognized that what Trump was trying to do was unconstitutional, was violating our constitutional process for electing presidents. win against it, and then we'll go, but God forbid Biden lowers prescription drug costs any lower. My goodness, that could really drive America to the ground. Or passes another infrastructure law. And can't have the guts to just put our Constitution and our democracy above the rest of the policy positions. Not because the other policies don't matter, but because we can't have a process to figure out how we manage those other policies with our democracy. And that's what Trump threatened and is threatening. And you were able to recognize that. And now Biden's a little too far left, though, for Brian Kemp's liking. Oh.
No, it's incredibly aggravating. I mean, listen, I understand partisanship. And I say this, listen, I've even owned it on the channel. I have a video about this, why partisanship, left-leaning partisanship, is okay in 2023. I don't think it's possible to be a good faith nonpartisan in today's political climate. Partisanship is understandable, but there are asterisks, right? There are limits. I'm trying to imagine a timeline, like a Doctor Strange timeline, in which Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, whoever, name a Democratic president, was like, you know, Josiah, you agree with me on most policy positions, but what if I just not do that whole term limit thing? And what if I just stay in office? I can't imagine not voting for Mitt Romney in 2012 if Barack Obama said, you know what, I've just decided to skip that whole peaceful transfer of power thing. The election is rigged. I'm just going to stay on for a second term, even if the election goes against me. There are some things which should trump, pun intended, matters of policy. And they basically go 95% of the way and then just pull up short at the last minute. That is not putting country above party, which is what you're supposed to do.
And then that, for me, calls into question all of what they're saying. Is it that they don't actually hold the principle of country above party, constitution above party, democracy over party, and instead just really don't want to be a part of the actual action of overthrowing our democracy? So that's too far. But
no, that's a great
that's
question.
About it.
Well, that's a great question, because it makes you wonder, like, somebody in an interview, and this is, I'm sure you feel the same way when you're thinking, darn it, Jake Tapper, why don't you ask him this? Or Caitlin Collins, why don't you ask this? But somebody should ask Brian Kemp, like, can you square for me if a Democratic policy, or if a Democratic politician, a Democratic agenda is so dangerous to this country, then why won't you, use your power as governor to what's the limiting principle here exactly? Where do you draw the line exactly? Because it seems like these things are, at least superficially, mutually exclusive. Because on the one hand, you're saying, no, I can't support this person when they take these actions. Like I can't support Donald Trump's attempts to overthrow the election. But I'm also going to back a guy who tried to overthrow the election over any Democrat. I don't understand how these can exist peacefully together. Like, they seem mutually exclusive. So I would want someone to ask Governor Kemp, how do you square these two things?
That's exactly right. Because in the situation where you don't go along with this coup attempt, and then you speak out against it and you say, why didn't you go along with it? Because that was against the Constitution, as we heard him say. So there you're saying supporting the Constitution is more important, even if that means Trump will be taken out of power by the American people. That's what Trump was trying to do, and you recognize it. But then you're saying, but putting that guy back into power that I've acknowledged is a threat to our Constitution is justified because of how dangerous Biden is. Well, if he's so dangerous, then, like you said, beep bubble and brain malfunction. Exactly. Thank you so much for watching. For the outro on this video, I want to plug Josiah's channel. Hit them with it, Josiah.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you watching. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. One word, pondering politics. If you like progressive commentary that focuses on coalition building with other elements of the left and calling the Republican Party out for what it's become, I hope you'll view my channel, give me a like and subscribe and some feedback. Again, youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. Thanks again.